You do not need to explain yourself to be understood. You do not need to speak just because they expect noise. The world keeps shouting. It keeps twisting your words, baiting your reactions, using your voice against you. But silence, when chosen with intention, is not weakness. It is strategy. It is strength. The more you react, the more you feed the chaos. The more you try to prove yourself, the more you give them what they want. They do not seek clarity. They seek control. And the moment you stop giving them a show, the moment you go still, something deeper begins. Karma takes your place. It moves quietly. It works slowly. But it never misses. The universe listens when you go silent. And in that silence, your power returns. This is not about ego. This is not about revenge. This is about mastery. When you no longer chase validation, when you no longer fight to be seen, you begin to live above the noise. Marcus Aurelius never shouted. Seneca never begged. Epictetus never explained. They simply lived in truth and let time reveal what others tried to bury. In this video, you will learn 7 moments when silence is not the absence of words, but the presence of control. Moments when speaking only feeds the fire, and staying still is the most powerful move you can make. Because silence does not mean you lost. It means you no longer need to win. Let them talk. Let them twist. Let them wonder. You just watch. You just wait. And you let karma do what it always does. Return the energy, exactly where it came from. Part 1. When someone lies about you, let karma speak louder than your defense. You will feel it the moment the lie spreads. Your chest tightens, your thoughts race, and your first instinct is to defend yourself. You want to scream the truth. You want to correct the story before it twists any further. But deep down, you know this is not about truth. It never was. People who lie about you do not care about facts. They want your reaction. They want to see if they can steal your peace. And the moment you fight back, the moment you plead and explain, you lose control. This is where silence becomes your weapon. You say nothing. You let them speak, you let them spin, but you hold your ground. You trust something far more powerful than your voice. You trust karma. Because lies have speed, but karma has direction. Lies can circle fast, but karma moves with precision. It does not stumble. It does not forget. And it always finds the source of the noise. The more still you are, the clearer the truth becomes. When you do not respond, when you do not give them the fuel they crave, you leave them exposed to their own fire. The silence you hold becomes pressure. It builds weight. It forces everyone to watch. And in that stillness, karma begins to unfold. It may not be immediate. It may not be loud. But it is always accurate. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If it is not true, do not say it. And if it is not right, do not do it." That is your compass. That is your calm. You do not need to chase justice when karma is already on the move. Let them lie. Let them laugh. Let them gather their audience. Because one day, their words will fall apart under the weight of your consistency. And when that happens, when the truth surfaces, you will not need to say a single word. Your silence will have said everything. So when they lie, stay calm. Let your actions remain pure. Let your dignity remain intact. And let karma do what it does best. Return what was given. Multiply what was sent. And restore what was lost. In silence, there is trust. In trust, there is peace. And in that peace, karma finds its clearest path. Part 2. When someone betrays you, let silence become the space where karma breathes. Betrayal feels like a knife you never saw coming. It is not just the act, it is the breaking of something sacred. Trust. Loyalty. Time. And when it happens, your chest burns with questions. You want to ask why. You want to scream how. You want to make them feel the weight of what they did. But here is what betrayal feeds on most: your attention. The more you beg for answers, the more you reveal your pain. And the more you bleed in front of them, the more powerful they feel. That is why you must not speak. That is why you must not react. Not because you are weak, but because you are not giving them what they want. You are choosing to rise while they expect you to fall. Betrayal is a game played by the insecure. They want to see how far they can push before you break. They want to know they mattered enough to shake your soul. But when you say nothing, when you disappear into silence, they lose their grip. They expect rage. You give them peace. They expect chaos. You give them calm. And that calm becomes unbearable for them. Because in that space, karma awakens. You do not see it right away. But you feel it. It is the moment they begin to sit with themselves. Without your words to distract them, they are left with their own reflection. And karma never needs your permission to start working. It just needs you to get out of the way. Your silence creates that room. That space where consequences begin to grow. Stoicism teaches you to hold your ground, to let go of what you cannot control, and to allow nature to restore balance. Betrayal is not something you heal by confronting the betrayer. It is something you survive by protecting your energy. So you stop talking. You stop explaining. You stop trying to make them understand. You simply remove your light from their life. And when the silence starts to echo, they will feel what they never imagined. Regret. Not because you hurt them, but because they cannot access the peace you took with you. Karma speaks in absence. It speaks in stillness. It arrives when the noise has faded. And it hits not with vengeance, but with clarity. You were never supposed to chase closure. You were supposed to walk away and let karma finish the conversation. Let them sit in what they created. And let your silence become the loudest truth they ever hear. Part 3. When someone insults you, stay silent and let karma answer with dignity. Words are weapons when used by the weak. Sarcasm, passive aggression, sharp jabs dressed as jokes, these are not signs of strength. They are signals of inner chaos. And when someone tries to insult you, they are not seeking the truth. They are testing your balance. They want to provoke you. Because your reaction feeds them. Your anger validates them. And the moment you respond, you hand them what they crave most. Control. But Stoicism teaches you something deeper. That true strength is not proven through clever comebacks. It is shown through unshakable silence. Because when you say nothing, when you do not flinch, when your face stays calm and your body still, you strip their words of power. You show them that their noise cannot reach your center. Karma does not always punish through thunder. Sometimes it punishes through invisibility. When you choose not to entertain their game, they lose the thrill. They expected fire and found ice. That contrast burns in ways they did not anticipate. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." When you respond with silence, you rise above the mud they tried to drag you into. You deny them the satisfaction of knowing they could disturb your peace. You show them that insults cannot penetrate a mind anchored in truth. Let me tell you what karma does in these moments. It waits. It watches. And it builds momentum. Because people who throw insults often throw them everywhere. Eventually, they reveal themselves. The world sees the pattern. And those who once laughed at their jokes start to question their bitterness. That is when karma begins to speak. Not through confrontation, but through revelation. Your stillness becomes evidence. Your restraint becomes power. And their hostility becomes their own undoing. So the next time someone tries to reduce you with words, do not shrink, do not bark back. Hold your frame. Let your posture be your statement. Let your silence remind them that you are not on their level. And while they scramble for attention, you remain unshaken. Karma does not need you to fight. It just needs you to stay silent long enough for the truth to reveal who is really out of control. The insult fades. Your peace remains. And in that silence, you win. Part 4. When someone plays the victim to twist the truth, your silence lets karma untangle the lie. Some people do not want resolution. They do not want understanding. What they want is control. And the easiest way to gain control is not by proving strength, but by performing weakness. These are the manipulators who flip the script. They start the fire and then act shocked when the heat rises. They rewrite the story. They remove themselves from accountability. They shed tears not from remorse, but from strategy. They play the victim, and suddenly, you are the villain. You find yourself caught in a storm you did not start. And your first instinct is to explain. To defend yourself. To show the facts. But here is where Stoic wisdom steps in. That reaction, that desperate attempt to correct the narrative, only adds fuel to their fire. Because they do not seek truth. They seek attention. And when you try to clarify, it looks like you are attacking someone who is already hurting. You lose. Not because you were wrong, but because you walked into their theater while the spotlight was on them. That is why silence is not just wise. It is necessary. When you stay silent, you step off their stage. You refuse to be cast in a play you never agreed to. You let the audience watch as the cracks in their performance begin to show. Because no matter how convincing the act is, patterns do not lie. And karma, patient and observant, sees every scene. Karma does not need to interrupt the performance. It waits until the curtains fall. Until the stories stop making sense. Until the audience starts to remember the last dozen times this person was the victim in a story that always had a new villain. That is when the truth arrives. Quiet. Undeniable. Sharp. Let me tell you something powerful. The most effective way to expose a manipulator is not through confrontation. It is through consistency. When you remain calm, steady, and detached, their chaos looks louder. Their stories sound wilder. And your silence becomes the mirror that shows them who they really are. You do not defend yourself to people who twist everything. You do not chase clarity from those who profit off confusion. You step back. You stay silent. And you let karma take the stage. Because truth is like gravity. It does not need help to fall into place. And those who lie, those who manipulate, always end up trapped in their own web. You do not need to break it. You just need to walk away and let their story collapse under the weight of its own lies. Karma will handle it. Your silence is the permission it needs. Part 5. When they take you for granted, let silence and karma reveal your worth. It does not always start with betrayal or insult. Sometimes it begins with silence. Not yours, but theirs. You show up. You care. You check in. You give without asking. You offer your presence like a gift, and it is received like an obligation. No recognition. No appreciation. Just expectation. And slowly, what once felt like connection starts to feel like emptiness. You feel invisible. Not because you stopped showing up, but because they stopped noticing. This is where most people make the mistake. They try harder. They give more. They chase validation. But Stoicism teaches you something else. Something more powerful. That silence is not just a response. It is a revelation. When your effort is met with indifference, you do not argue for your place. You withdraw it. You let your absence become the answer that your words never could be. Because karma does not strike with thunder. It speaks through distance. It speaks through the hollow space your presence used to fill. Let me tell you something about human nature. People do not value what is always available. They value what they think they might lose. And when you are constantly giving, constantly reaching out, they stop seeing your energy as a gift. They start treating it like background noise. Something that is always there. Until it is not. That is when karma begins. It begins in the silence. In the quiet void left behind when you stop calling, stop checking in, stop carrying the weight of the relationship alone. And in that void, truth is born. The truth about who values you. About who comes looking. About who disappears. Karma has a way of using your silence as a teacher. It shows people what they lost by letting them live without it. It replaces your effort with absence and watches who feels it. Let me tell you a story. There was a man who was always there for others. Always the first to call. Always the one who remembered. One day, he stopped. And in that silence, he saw the truth. The ones who cared made the effort. The ones who did not, they faded into the background they once forced him into. So the next time you feel taken for granted, remember this. Do not argue. Do not beg. Just stop. Let karma speak. Let the silence echo. And let their own inaction write the story. You do not need to prove your worth. You just need to remove it. Those who deserve you will notice. Those who never did, never mattered. In silence, karma restores balance. It does not scream. It whispers. And it always arrives on time. Part 6. When they provoke you to break your calm, your silence becomes karma's revenge. Some people do not want peace. They want control. They thrive in chaos, feed on tension, and specialize in emotional bait. They poke your patience, test your temper, and push buttons not by accident, but by design. Their power does not come from truth. It comes from reaction. And if they can make you flinch, they win. If they can get you to raise your voice, break your rhythm, or act out of emotion, they gain control. Not over the situation. Over you. This is not conflict. This is manipulation. A quiet psychological game where the goal is not victory, but dominance. And the fastest way to lose is to fight on their terms. That is where Stoic mastery begins. When you recognize that not all battles deserve your presence. Not all opponents are worthy of your reaction. And not every insult deserves your voice. In fact, the moment you speak, you give them power. But the moment you stay silent, karma begins to move. It watches from behind your stillness. It observes your restraint. And it stores every provocation as fuel for the future. Because karma does not punish with noise. It waits in silence, just like you. And when the time is right, it speaks louder than any comeback you could have offered. Let me tell you something about silence. It unsettles the unbalanced. It terrifies the insecure. And it defeats the manipulative. When someone is used to chaos, your calm becomes unpredictable. When someone is used to reaction, your stillness becomes unnerving. And when someone expects a war, your silence becomes a mirror. They end up fighting their own reflection, drowning in the noise they created, while you stand untouched. Let me tell you a story. There was a man who worked beside someone who thrived on drama. Every meeting, every moment, there was sarcasm, there were jabs, vague comments meant to trigger a response. At first, he defended himself. He argued, explained, stood up for truth. And every time, he felt exhausted. Until he stopped. He didn't fight. He didn't explain. He just smiled, nodded, and said nothing. Silence. And that silence did what words never could. It exposed the other man's games. It made him uncomfortable. Eventually, people noticed. And karma did the rest. His mask cracked, his influence faded, and the man who stayed silent walked forward in peace. So how do you respond when provoked? You don't. You observe. You breathe. You stand tall. You remember that karma is not slow. It is precise. It knows when to arrive. And it always does. Your silence is the signal that you are no longer reactive. You are untouchable. And in that silence, karma writes your victory. Part 7. When they regret losing you, let silence and karma close the door for good. There will come a time when the silence you gave someone becomes the loudest sound in their life. Not because you wanted revenge. Not because you needed to prove anything. But because you finally understood that your peace was more valuable than their chaos. After they took you for granted, after they ignored your worth, after they assumed you would always be there, reality hits. And when it does, it hits hard. They remember the way you cared. The way you stayed. The way you showed up without being asked. But now you are gone. And it is not your voice they miss. It is your presence. Your energy. Your light. But here is where most people fail. They hear the apology. They see the regret. And they soften. They think maybe this time it will be different. But Stoic wisdom says otherwise. Epictetus taught that no man is free who is not master of himself. And being a master of yourself means this. You do not return to places that broke you. You do not lower your standards to comfort someone else's guilt. You do not explain the silence that healed you. You let karma speak the words you no longer need to. Let me tell you a story. There was a woman who gave everything in her relationship. Love. Loyalty. Time. Her partner got comfortable. Took her kindness as something guaranteed. Stopped showing appreciation. Stopped showing up. Until one day she left. Quietly. Cleanly. Without warning. At first he thought it was temporary. He thought she would return like always. But days turned to weeks. Weeks into months. And silence became permanent. That silence was karma. It whispered to him in the middle of the night. It echoed in the places where her laughter once lived. He called. He begged. He promised change. But it was too late. Because she had healed. And her silence was now her power. Her freedom. Her closure. So when someone regrets losing you, remember this. First, do not open the door just because they now recognize its value. If they could not see you when you stood before them, they do not deserve to have you back now. Second, resist the urge to explain your absence. Your silence is not empty. It is full of everything they chose to ignore. Third, hold the line. Let karma finish the story. Because when you remain silent, when you do not return, when you let time and truth reveal everything, you become untouchable. Your silence becomes a wall they cannot climb. A message they cannot rewrite. And a consequence they must sit with. Not because you want them to suffer. But because you chose to heal without them. You chose your peace. You chose your worth. You chose to let karma speak louder than anything you could have said. And that choice, that discipline, that self-respect, is what makes you truly powerful. Let them regret. Let them remember. But do not let them return. You do not need to yell to be heard. You do not need to fight to win. And you do not need to speak to make a statement. In a world addicted to noise, silence is power. Silence is clarity. Silence is karma. When you fall silent, you take back everything they tried to steal from you. Your dignity. Your peace. Your control. Because karma does not move with force. It moves with patience. It moves with silence. And when you learn to trust it, to truly trust the quiet path, you rise above every insult, every betrayal, every lie. A Stoic man does not chase closure. He does not beg to be understood. He simply steps back and lets the universe finish what he chose to walk away from. So the next time someone pushes you, lies to you, provokes you, or regrets losing you, do not respond. Do not explain. Do not react. Just observe. And wait. Karma does not need your help. It just needs your silence. If this message speaks to your soul, if it echoes something you have been through, then do one small thing to help this channel grow. Subscribe to Stoic Legacy. It is free, and it helps this message reach those who need it most. If you know someone struggling to hold their peace, send this to them. Let them know that silence is not weakness. It is wisdom. Stay stoic and build your stoic legacy.